I'm wondering if you've ever stood in the middle of everything you worked for, the title, the team, the thing you fought for your whole life. And once you've arrived, you felt just strangely, quietly hollow. Like you crossed the finish line and found out there was no one waiting there for you. Because this is not burnout, this is not overworking. This is the specific feeling of standing inside a win and feeling nothing. Or worse, feeling like the wind exposed something. Like it showed you a version of your life you don't actually live yet. Today, we're going to talk about what it costs to spend years proving yourself in rooms that were never designed for you. And not from a lens of complaining, but simply from a lens of utilizing that information and learning what to do with it.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Hola, hola, welcome back to Café con Pam, the bilingual podcast that celebrates the power of our stories, the medicine in our voices, and the magic of reclaiming who we are. Pull up your cafecito, este episodio es para ti. Yo soy Pam Covarrubias, and today is just you and me. Hoy es uno de esos episodios donde it's just you and me. And before we go anywhere else, I'm wondering if you've ever stood in the middle of everything you worked for, the title, the team, the thing you fought for your whole life. And once you've arrived, you felt nothing. Not ungrateful, not burned out, not like sad even. Just strangely, quietly hollow. Like you crossed the finish line and found out there was no one waiting there for you. Mm. That feeling has a name, and it's not a personality or a character flaw. Today, we're going to talk about what it costs to spend years proving yourself in rooms that were never designed for you. And not from a lens of complaining, but simply from a lens of utilizing that information and learning what to do with it. We're going to talk about what happens in the body when survival becomes your baseline leadership style and why the version of success you chased so hard can feel, once you reach it, like someone else's skin. I want to make it clear that this is not a motivation episode. I don't know if I ever do those. This is an excavation episode. And if you have been high functioning and quietly falling apart, well, the goal is for you to recognize yourself today. So, by the end of the episode, we're going to have a name for something we've been feeling for a long time. And once we have the name, we can finally start doing something about it. Bueno, I want to take you to a room that changed something for me. So, this is when one of my clients had planned every detail of their office. And when I say every detail, I mean the feeling, the way the room held you when you walked in. This is beyond decor. This is the energy that was put in the room. Because when I walked in the room, I felt it. I felt what it was like to be fully received by a space. And it was almost as if this space had been waiting for me. We did really amazing work. And the work that we did together, and of course, I'm being cryptic because I want to keep confidentiality of my clients, but the work that we did together was work that at the end reminds me why I do what I do, you know? So we completed the engagement and I was so elated. I was excited, I was thrilled, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is why I do what I do." And then I flew home afterwards, no? Because I flew in, we did the work, and then I flew back home. And the next morning, once I came home, I sat at my desk and I felt disappointed, sad, unaccomplished, and nothing had gone wrong. But what actually had happened is that something amazing happened and it didn't follow me home. And I don't know if people talk about this enough Because this is not burnout, this is not overworking. This is the specific feeling of standing inside a wind and feeling nothing, or worse, feeling like the wind exposed something, like it showed you a version of your life you don't actually live yet. And last week's episode, I talked to Valeria about post wind depression. So it wasn't necessarily that. This is a gap, the gap between what you glimpsed and where you actually are. So it's different from getting a win and then coming back, coming down from the win. This is an actual gap between where you know you can be and where you are. And that is its own kind of grief. So that's the feeling. That's what I want to put a name to today because I see so many of my clients deal with this. I see so many of my friends deal with this. I myself deal with this. And so this is where we want to give it a name. And so I've been thinking about what to call this feeling for a long time. I've already named it before, but this is the episode when we actually name it, name it. It's not imposter phenomenon because that is when we feel like we don't belong. That's not it because it's different. This is belonging there fully, completely, and then coming home to a version of you that hasn't caught up with that yet. And this is what I call the certainty gap. The certainty gap is the moment when you're almost there, when you can feel what rooted and certain leadership feels like in your body because you just lived it for 3 days, but you don't know how to make it stay. It's like being on the subway platform. You can see the train, you can feel the wind of the train coming, but you're not part of the station anymore because you know you're leaving, but you're also not in the train yet. Oh, and that is so annoying. It's a very real place of living in that gap. It's the in between that's not necessarily a sign of something being wrong. It's a sign that you are so close. So we have a name for that space. I've never heard anyone name it. I think we often either go to how do we get to what we want. Maybe there's a little bit of talk of how do we maintain what we want, but there's not enough talk on how do we make the jump? How do we close the gap? How do we bridge from almost there to fully certain? And so when I found myself in it, I'm going to tell you what I did. So the morning I found myself at home at my desk and I was like, "Oh, I'm back." Like it didn't feel like my office embraced me the way that my office there embraced me. And so what I gave myself was the completion of my emotion. And I mentioned them already. I was sad, I was disappointed, I was all the things. And so I did what I call mechanical tapping. And I didn't coin the term, but it's called mechanical tapping because you literally just tap on all the points. In my case, that is my somatic tool of choice. You can go on a walk, you can jump up and down. What's important is for you to let the emotion cycle through, and each emotion cycles through 90 seconds. So, a minute and a half. And so, what I let myself is I pulled out my journal, I did mechanical tapping, and I was like, curious. I approached it with curiosity. What am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling sad. Okay. This sadness, this sadness, this sadness, this sadness, this sadness. And I went through the points. Now I'm feeling disappointed. Okay. This disappointment, this disappointment, this, and it's relatively simple. And what I found out is that I didn't get to that place of bridging the gap because it was this extraordinary thing that I had discovered, but more so because I had tools. And frankly, I have to remind myself of the tools most of the time. So if I have the tools and I remind myself of the tools, well, I'm here to remind you of the tools. Because one thing I can say is that I've learned through so much work that you cannot think your way out of something that lives in your body, and emotions live in the body. I did a round on resentment. around on feeling of having left something behind, on the story that the success was temporary. So there was a part of me that was like, that which you experienced only lasted so long because that's how much you can hold. Kind of wild, right? And so I did a tapping around on that, on acknowledging and accepting that that was what my body was saying. And once I let the emotion cycle through, I mean, a tapping sequence truly lasts a minute and a half. Then my perception shifted and I realized that my quote successful self didn't just belong to the office I went to and with my client. That version of me who got the incredible experience to travel to a beautiful building that was so intentional and curated was the same person sitting at her own desk the next morning. And so what I created was the name for what I was feeling, and I uncovered where it was living in my body. And I let myself feel it instead of managing it or explaining it away because that did not work. For a second, I was like, oh, like this feels icky. I don't want to feel it. Let me just get back to work. But then I allowed myself to pause and was like, wait, if this is showing up, why is this showing up? Let's feel it. We only need 90 seconds to feel it. But then, it unraveled a little bit because what started from I'm feeling sad to I'm feeling resentful to I'm feeling annoyed to I'm feeling disappointed. And it's fine because 20 minutes later, slowly, not all at once, I started to build evidence back in my body. And this is actual receipts, actual proof that the experience I had just had 2 days ago in that office wasn't a fluke. That it was a possibility that I had experienced myself and my body could hold it. And so I made it my job to remind myself every day to create capacity for certainty to exist in me without fear chasing it out. Eventually, my desk started to feel like that office. My office started to become that office because I did the work. This is what the pattern assessment is built to give you. Identify which is a pattern, creating the gap, and giving your body a specific practice for the pattern. I'm going to have the link in the show notes if you want to go deeper after today, because I spent so much time in this assessment from all the sessions with my clients to all of my own sessions with myself. And I think it's a really cool assessment. I would love for you to take it. I have it. I'll have it in the show notes. I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but built it with a lot of love, sweat, and tears. Now, if you're in the certainty gap right now, if you have tasted what rooted leadership feels like, and for some reason you can't figure out why it won't stay, here's a message for you. You're not failing. You're not broken. You're not an imposter. You're literally on the platform. The train is coming and you can feel the wind of the train coming. And the work isn't about speeding up the train because we can't really speed up the train. The work is about building that internal evidence that you're allowed to board the train. That the success is not something that happens to you in other people's offices and borrowed spaces. That it belongs to you regardless of where you are because your body gets to hold it forever, not just when the conditions are favorable or perfect. Because certainty is not a feeling that arrives. Certainty is a capacity you build within you. And you have been building certainty since you started the work, since you started existing in the world, to be honest. But right now, that feeling is the gap. It's you standing in the platform, seeing the train come in, and maybe you've stood on the platform, you've gotten on the train and gotten off on the next station because you were like, oof, I'm not sure. It's called sabotage. And so every time you get back on the platform and you see the train coming, it's a gap, is that certainty gap. And sometimes circumstances made you get back on the platform. It happens.
Hay conversaciones que nos enseñaron a callar, y dinero was one of them. Pero here's the truth. Tu dignidad financiera no debería depender de que traduzcas todo para tu mamá, tus tías, tu abuelita o quien sea. Savvy Ladies just made it easier than ever to get financial help en español. Their free helpline means your mama can ask a question without you having to translate shame, confusion, or whatever her comadre told her. Talleres, clases, consejos, todo completamente gratis y con el respeto que nuestras familias merecen. Porque libertad financiera no es lujo, es necesidad. So whether it's you or your mama who's ready to take that first step, go to savvyladies.org. That is SAVVYLADIES.org. Empieza hoy. La dignidad financiera no se pide, se reclama.
Here's the thing. Latina families have been saving money forever. From reusing plastic containers for comida, folding up plastic bags under the sink, and diluting dish soap with water. The last thing we need is to pay fees to access our money, right? Pues, in case you didn't know, BMO customers have access to 40,000 fee-free ATMs across the United States. Plus, their BMO Smart Advantage checking account has no monthly maintenance fee. Learn more about how BMO can help by visiting bmo.com/checking. bmo.com/checking. Conditions apply. Accounts provided in the United States by BMO Bank, NA member FDIC. The invitation for you is to tune in to the emotion, because the emotion cycles for 90 seconds, remember? And so if you're feeling that you're existing in the certainty gap, then give yourself permission to feel what it is. Is it sadness? Is it resentment? Is it disappointment? Is it frustration? Because maybe you may feel tender. Maybe the feeling may be fear. You know, I have worked with so many people who their certainty gap is fear of being figured out. And that fear makes you exhausted, because through the fear pulls a lot of energy from your body to defend yourself in case you need to survive, in case you need to fight a bear, in case a tiger's chasing you, because the body doesn't know the difference between somebody finding out that, I don't know, you don't deserve the chair or the seat at the table, or a wild tiger chasing you. The body just knows what it feels like to keep explaining, to code switch, to not speak up because you may feel like nobody's going to hear you, or whatever it is. Give your body permission to go through the cycle of that emotion, because the feeling is not random. It may be a pattern that you may have repeated and may not realize, because maybe you're on the station and you're hopping on the train and just kind of like getting to the next station and be like, oof, don't know if I'm there yet. And then hang out in that station, but that station doesn't feel familiar anymore either. Being fully in the station may feel like almost like your body even rejects it. Oh, I've been there. And so the certainty gap is super real. And I think I share my story because I want you to build your own evidence. I want you to use my story as evidence that it's possible to bridge the certainty gap. It's possible for you to give your body that clarity, that certainty that you belong where you are. And so that way we can overcome the calladita culture conditioning that taught you to lead from performance, from overproof, from shrinking just enough to stay in the room, and show up certain, because you cannot think your way out of something that lives in your body. So the first step is naming it. We're not going to fix it. You know, if you've been hearing me for a while, the work that I do is not quick win work. It's not. So I don't know if I have done one of those videos that are like, I'm going to fix your mindset in 3 seconds, because I don't believe that's possible. Maybe you'll get an update, a little software update. But if it lives in the body runs the show because the body is ran by the limbic brain, which is your emotional brain, and the emotions run the show. And so we want to simply start with naming the pattern that's been running the show. And with that is when the Kaita pattern assessment experience comes in, you can take the free quiz or the assessment is 9 questions. These questions are answered from the body. And so the invitation is as you answer these questions, make sure you feel the answers. Because if you try to answer from intellect, from your frontal cortex, from your cognitive brain, then there's some justification that happens there. There's some overthinking that may happen there. So truly, when you complete the assessment, complete it from your body. And what it will give you is your primary pattern that is named. You're going to get your leadership portrait delivered, your leadership archetype, and a somatic practice designed specifically for what you're carrying. And so the reason why I'm not going deep into the archetypes, the 5 archetypes are built upon the 5 wounds of Calladita culture. The 5 wounds of Calladita culture are silence, commitment, power, identity, and worth. Those wounds have been running the show emotionally for a long time, for all of us first gens. Your leadership archetypes start showing up as you lead, as you exist in the world in your leadership, whether you are a manager, a C-level executive, you're running a business, or you're a parent, frankly. And so the assessment, the free quiz, what it gives you is your wound. And then the assessment, what it does is it gives you the analysis of your leadership archetype so that you can build capacity and bridge the certainty gap between where you are and where you know you're going. You're already at the station. All you have to do is get on the train. If you want to check out the assessment, it's assessment.calladitaculture.com. I'm going to have it in the show notes. But truly, truly, truly tune in to what you're feeling. Give your body permission to feel. We have been socialized for so long to not even to ignore our bodies, to ignore our feelings, to ignore and just think life through. But it's so beautiful when you let your body feel and release and, pun intended, shake it off, tap it out, release that which you've been carrying so that you can build and expand the capacity into that leader that you know you can be. So, step 1, we name it. Then we find it. We exist in it, we let it be, we process, we build capacity, and we close the certainty gap. Bueno, short little episode. Again, the free quiz gives you the the biggest wound that's running you. The assessment gives you the profile. And then eventually we're going to work on certain and rooted, which is where we are going to go deep. Because my work is not I've tried to make my work light, but I don't know if I can. We go deep and we excavate so we can actually build the space so we can be the best version, the version you know you are. We bridge the certainty gap and we become rooted and certain. And we reprogram and we go. I have already sent some tests with people and they're responding with like, oh my gosh. If you want to be a part of the testing group, let me know. I would love to have you on the list. Okay, mi reina. If this episode moved something, send it to your prima, your tia, whoever, your colleague, your working buddy, your favorite employee. If you think this is going to support them in some way, thank you so much for being here. Tag me and tell me what resonated. I would love to know what feels good. Thank you for the most recent review. I do want to say this. The most recent review that said, Bum is like the sister I never had. Yes, I am. I am. And I'm so happy you're here. Sending you so much love. Nos vemos en la próxima. Y bueno, como siempre, sigue brillando. Café con Pam is created con mucho amor by our small but mighty team. Content production by Nancy Jaimes. Podcast management by Maru Linardi. Social media and marketing by Brenda Figueroa. And me, your host, Pam Covarrubias. To keep the cafecito brewing and the healing flowing, join the Supporters Club for only $5 a month and access early episodes, behind the scenes vibes, and exclusive minisodes you won't hear anywhere else. Screenshot this episode and tag me and share what resonated. I love seeing your takeaways. Follow on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's keep the conversation going with us on social media at Café con Pan Podcast because your voice always matters there. We love being on Instagram and Facebook. Gracias for listening to Café con Pan, a Spread Ideas Move People production. For more episodes, guest info, or resources, visit cafeconpam.com. And if you're healing from calladita culture and don't know where to start, you can take the quiz. cafeconpam.com/quiz for tia wisdom and cariño just for you.
Sabrosura pa' ti que